Welcome to Human Together, where we dive into the power of connection, shared stories, and leadership. I'm Linnea Miller, founder and CEO of Long Table. And on this podcast, we'll hear from inspiring individuals who have embraced the journey of being fully human, both in their personal and professional lives and in their communities. Together, we'll uncover leadership lessons that empower us to thrive, not just in our careers, but in the ways we engage with each other every day. Because when we have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we can thrive with others. Let's explore how we can lead, live, and grow by being human together. Welcome to the Human Together podcast. I am so thrilled to be here today, and I cannot wait to introduce you to my guests. Today's guests are some of my favorite humans. They are dear, dear friends, and I'm excited for them to be on the show because I know that we're going to have a wonderful conversation where we're going to learn a lot from one another. We're going to laugh a lot, and I think that their story is going to be inspiring for everyone. So I'd like to welcome my good friends, Matt Paxton, founder of Clutter Cleaner and host of the TV show on Discovery called Filthy Fortunes, and Zoe Kim, author of the book Minimalism for Families and owner and simplicity coach at Raising Simple. Matt with Clutter Cleaners helps families to clean out estates and hoarded homes. We're going to get into all the fun on that. Some call it extreme cleaning. They do it on TV and in real life. We're also going to talk about some of the real life, but not on TV, hoarding situations that I've encountered recently in my own personal life. And then Raising Simple helps families streamline their homes and simplify lives through practical tips, inspiring content, and hands-on workshops. They offer resources that support intentional living, including digital courses, live workshops, and a curated LTK shop, which is, I think, like to know it, correct? Mm-hmm. I've shopped from those before.
Yes.
Focused on minimalist home products. Their mission is to empower families to create calm, clutter-free spaces that reflect what matters most. Just a little bit more about Matt. He is one of the top downsizing and decluttering experts in the country.
Some would say
the top. Yeah, his humility is also going to shine. We're going to love that. He is the host of the hit show Filthy Fortunes on Discovery, which, by the way, is really fun. I just binge watched the last 2 or 3 episodes last night. He was featured on the 2-time Emmy-nominated series Legacy List with Matt Paxton on PBS and was an extreme cleaner on Hoarders for 15 seasons. Matt is also the author of the best-selling book, Keep the Memories, Lose the Stuff, and founder of Clutter Cleaner, a nationwide company dedicated to helping families downsize and clean out their estates. Paxton started cleaning out houses after his father, stepfather, and both grandfathers died in the same year, and that is the reason Matt has been working with families struggling with hoarding and downsizing for 20 years. Zoe also has a passion for really helping families find purpose and live holistically, and Matt and Zoe live with their 7 children. So there's no minimalism in 7 children, but we're going to talk about that as well. But they live here in the city of Suwanee, Georgia, and I think one of my favorite things about Matt and Zoe, before I kick it off to you, is your taste in friends. I think that you have excellent choice in friends, choosing Eric and Linnea.
high caliber friends.
That's very fair. Welcome to the show, guys. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yeah, we are so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Linnea.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure to meet you. And I think it's been, how many years has it been since we've been friends?
Gosh, 3 or 4.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Good.
I know.
So, Zoe, tell us a little bit about what you do with Raising Simple.
Well, as you introduced me so well, I do workshops and I really just help moms and families downsize and simplify.
We cross over so much. I mean, if you read my book, like half of it is stuff that I learned working with. I met Zoe halfway through the book. I'd written it, and then I fell in love with her and had to move here. And I realized I I could tell people what to do for 25 years, but when it came to my own attic, it kind of sucked. The book wasn't very good. So I had to rewrite the book. And it's really inspired by a lot of things Zoe taught me. Mm. And so you'll see that we cross over a lot. Yeah. And even our bios, we've started to kind of we kind of do the same thing. Even though we've really intentionally tried to keep our businesses separate, we pretty much work in the same business together now.
Yeah.
And it's
I
kind of
love
hard
it
not
because
to.
you both have a different facet of that work, and it's really important work. So I want to kind of rewind and actually start with a little bit of each of you and your own individual journeys, and then we'll talk about how you came together to be doing this work and making this impact. But individually, Zoe, tell me, as a mom with 4 kids, like a lot of us moms with a lot of children, tell me what got you focused into the work that you're doing with Raising Simple. Like, what was the pain point for you? What was the passion that you saw? Describe your journey a little bit.
Yeah. So I started living this minimalist lifestyle, or, found out about it. Gosh, it's been 13 years now, I think. And at the time I only had 2 kids, and we were moving, and I was packing up all this stuff and wondering why I'm packing up all this stuff that we didn't even use. I was getting a babysitter to watch my kids while I packed up these things that we didn't use. And so it just kind of dawned on me, like, this is stressful, this is wasteful, and I felt really overwhelmed. And I think just in general, the nature of motherhood too, you can still feel overwhelmed and have the perfect home perfectly decluttered as well. So, right, raising humans is a lot to take on, and that's how I came into it. And also, actually, one of the other things I like to share is my love of zero waste. And I will admit, this has kind of fallen on the wayside in the past years as our family is larger. But I actually found Bea Johnson online. She's at the Zero Waste Home, and she shared photos of her house online. And although it's much more minimalist than mine, I looked at her house and literally it was like, oh my God. And she has 2 kids too. And I was just like, wow, this is like freedom.
This is possible.
Yes, this is possible. It really just gave me a visual, like, oh, she can live a really happy life. She has a great house and she has a family and they do things and right? It's the whole experiences over stuff. And so that really motivated me as well.
Yeah. And you have a background in horticulture, right?
I do.
Which I love.
Yes.
So you always have a passion for just making sure that you're sustainable, taking care of the earth, celebrating the things that the earth offers, right? Not necessarily feeling like you need to bring in all kind of consumer types of commercialism and consumer products.
Yes.
And everything.
All the plastic stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's everywhere, right?
Yes, it's everywhere.
Yep.
It's everywhere.
Yep. How about you, Matt? Tell us a little bit about your journey. Yours started even before you kind of mentioned here about that pivotal year about losing your father, your stepfather, both grandfathers.
2001. My dad, my stepdad, both my grandfathers passed away. And I was a very immature 24-year-old kid. And I was available because I had been fired from my job. And so I had to clean out the houses for my family. And it sucked. It was awful. I was grieving. I was lost. The men I would have gone to for help had all just passed away, and I was sorting through all their stuff. And it was just awful. And the reason I say that is my grandfather had always said to me, if something really, really sucks, do it as a job because other people will pay you to do it. And to this day, that is still my business plan. I'm doing the work that nobody wants to do. And it's a really good business. What I didn't expect to do was fall in love with helping people, fall in love with the stories, and then eventually fall in love with this lady on my left. I mean, it's crazy to think that tragedy, all of those men dying, by the way, it wasn't like a bar fight. It was just bad luck. Yeah. But the tragedy of 2001 had really set the pace for me to help millions of families.
Yeah.
I know those men would love what I get to do and what Zoe and I get to do now. And, I always say for anyone that's in a kind of a caregiving space, it's often initiated with trauma. And I think that's it for both of us. I mean, we kind of both live in stuff as our careers. But it's because we really love helping people.
Yeah.
And that's really what boils down for both of us. It just the vehicle happens to be stuff.
Yeah. I think that's what both of you have taught me in the years that I've known you is, I think when people are watching a show on TV or they're even just on Instagram scrolling through or Facebook scrolling through, you're looking at the visuals, you're looking at the stuff. I think I remember an episode that I saw last night, like talk about doing the jobs nobody wants to do. I mean, you were almost vomiting, having to go through this hoarder's bathroom, right? Like, and the fact that people hold on to these things is really, and for all of us, I think at all different levels, I think that, Zoe, your entry point is just that relatability that I think all of us as moms feel like when our houses start to become overwhelming and it's like robbing us of the life we can have with our children, even being able to play with them because we're just managing stuff instead of actually being present. And then all the way to the extreme of like, Matt, here you are like working with people that have had significant trauma, and it's never about the stuff. It's always about something deeper. So start with like Zoe sharing with us a little bit about, as a mom, maybe what more listeners can relate to in just that experience and what it was costing you to feel like you were in this, environment that you couldn't keep up with.
Yeah. First I want to say, I think that many moms get to that place because we want to create a home where, our kids and our family can thrive and everybody feels loved and connected. And so we think that, getting all that stuff is going to create that for us. So, but then, right, there's the tipping point where every good thing can become not a good thing. And so when you just start acquiring more than you can handle, I don't think that we're made to handle that much. I try to just steer away from like, oh, you're supposed to be the super mom and you're supposed to do everything. You can't do everything. You can do, there's a quote, I don't know whose it is, but it's something like, you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important to remember. And just for me and my experience, I was just feeling like, a failure and stressed and overwhelmed. And I already, it actually also helped me learn about myself. I think when you become a mother, you see yourself in situations and maybe you thought, oh, this is what I'm going to do. It's going to be great. And I'm going to kill it. Right. And then the situation happens, or your kid has a meltdown, or they don't want to clean up all their toys. And then you lose your lid. Right.
Yeah.
And you just didn't picture yourself doing that. But I think that being able to simplify and everything for your family can really relieve a lot of stress, financial, emotional. Believe it or not, I mean, a lot of couples, from what I've been told, also, argue, right, about stuff. And so usually there's one that wants to keep it and one that wants to get rid of it. Matt and I are not going to point fingers at each other right now about this. I'm just kidding. No,
important.
We both want
it is important.
We both like simplicity.
We love simplicity, and our life is dedicated to it. But do we as a couple fight over stuff? Absolutely. Argue over it, sure.
We chat about it.
I mean, we absolutely do. It's everybody. It's not just like, we're not here to judge anybody. I mean, the reason we use minimalism and we use decluttering and downsizing is because we were so overwhelmed with stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not trying to say we're above it. We're right in the trenches with everybody. We just, when you have 7 kids, it gets really extreme really fast.
Yeah.
And yes, I clean the messiest homes in the country, have for 25 years. But like, the battle is in my house. We got 6 teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think both of us, neither one of us have too much stuff.
No, I'm saying, could you imagine if we did? I mean, I don't think we could actually succeed as a family because, Zoe has done a really good job. Spoiler alert, I met Zoe by reading her book, Minimalism for Families. And I think that's an important part of the story. I was a single dad in Virginia. I had a son that had a processing disorder, and it affected us greatly. My son and I, and he couldn't get dressed. And so it started every morning with an argument, my son and I. And I would start to say things, as an uneducated dad, you start to say things like, you're choosing to behave this way. And you go to a doctor, and then a doctor's like, he's specifically not choosing to behave this way, but you don't know.
Right.
And I was looking for help, and I went online, and I just posted on Facebook. I said, one of the benefits of being on TV is you can post something on Facebook, and people give you your opinion. And I said, anybody know what to do? And a bunch of people said, read this book. So I go out, I buy the book. It's a wonderful book called Minimalism for Families. And it basically just told me my son had too many choices. He was overwhelmed with choices. It wasn't that he couldn't choose, he didn't want to choose, is that he couldn't choose. And I'm like looking at it and it's like, oh my God, not only are all of his clothes in this closet, all of the hand-me-downs, all of the other kids' extra clothes, all the seasons. He had the biggest closet. So the kid that had the least ability to make decisions had the most decisions to make on a daily basis. So I took her advice before I knew her. And I took her advice and I took everything out of the closet. And by the way, mind you, I'm like the top decluttering expert in the country at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm taking advice from a book from a lady I don't even know. I took everything out of the closet, 5 pair of shorts, 5 shirts, 5 underwear, 5 socks. That's it. And we've been fighting for months, my son and I. We wake up the next morning, he wakes me up, knocking on my chest. Dad, look. And he's dressed. He's like, look, Dad, I did it. And it changed his life.
Yeah.
So I went online to thank this old lady that wrote the book. I assumed it was some old lady. And it was not.
Little did you know.
As the kids say, I slid into her DMs.
I slid into her.
And now here we are, 7 years later. Yeah. The point of all that is that like, even people like us that like, quote unquote, the experts. I mean, we all struggle with stuff, man.
Absolutely.
But we're looking for happiness. I say in hoarding, I mean, the key is the hoarder hoards because they're looking for happiness and self-worth in their stuff. Something bad's happened to them. They're looking for joy, happiness in their stuff. What Zoe and I both believe is that your happiness and self-worth is in you. It's in your time with your family. It's not in the stuff. And that's really what minimalism has done for us. I think it's enabled us to really just not have a lot of stuff. So we're not getting stuck with, picking up 9 bikes and picking up, we don't spend 3 hours a day cleaning up. I used to do that. I used to spend an hour every night walking around the house cleaning up.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to clean up.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. I want to unpack that a little bit further because, with the Human Together podcast, we're really trying to share people's stories, and your story is so relatable for both of you. And the things that you want are the things I think that every parent wants, the things that everybody wants in order to have healthy relationships, to be able to thrive, to be able to steward what we have been given really well. And so unpacking that a little bit, I think there's so many leadership lessons to learn in the work that you do and the choices that you make and the way that you live your lifestyle. And so I looked up just the definition. I like to just look up definitions, go to the dictionary and go, what is the definition for clutter? And I read that clutter is to fill something in an untidy or badly organized way. And I started to think about that. And again, when we think of clutter, typically we're thinking of visual clutter. Like I could be thinking right now of my basement where there is a lot of clutter. So we're thinking about that kind of thing. But I think that what we've talked about already a little bit, and I want to explore that a little bit more, is that maybe the clutter starts in our mind.
1,000%.
It starts in our thinking. So what would you say are some of the things that affect people's, if we have untidy or badly organized thinking, how does that show up? What does that look like?
I mean, mental clutter is what clutter is. The stuff is just a vehicle for that mental clutter. It really holds you back from living. And so what it does is you wake up and that clutter is, okay, I've already failed. You wake up, you see a sink that you didn't clean out the night before. So the first thing you do that morning is you realize, well, I gave up. I quit. So you've already failed yourself. And now you're supposed to have the energy to go and inspire your employees, your kids, your partner, but you've already acknowledged in your brain, I quit, right? Clutter is a constant reminder that you quit. And it's just, and it piles up and it piles up and it piles up. And so it's that to-do list in your brain that just, it holds you. So it's not only like quitting, but it's like acknowledging that you have faults. And all this is in your head, by the way. You're not saying this out loud to anybody. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, another to-do list. So I'm going to do the to-do list I actually wrote out physically, but then I've got 50 things on my brain too. And then your son comes in and says, oh, I need the thing for the field trip. I need the lunch. And so before you've even left the door, you've already got 20 things you didn't get done.
Yep.
Right. To me, that's what clutter is. And then you're supposed to somehow have, energy to go. So clutter is also exhaustion.
I think of clutter as anything that doesn't add purpose and value to your space and your life, because I could walk into somebody's house and look at their bookshelf, and I could say, wow, that really looks like a lot of clutter. And maybe some people would think that way. Or let's just say that lamp makes this whole space look cluttered, but that lamp is like the one piece that means something to them, or it was their grandmother's or something. So in their brain, that is not clutter. Yeah. So I try to just go back to anything that doesn't add purpose and value in your life. Yeah. Yes. And I can circle that back to my degree in horticulture as well, because there's always the debate about what is a weed. Oh, yeah. Right? I mean, some people like goldenrod, right? But other people are like, this is a weed. Mm-hmm. So a weed is anything that is not in its place that you don't want there. It doesn't have the purpose and value and what you intended it for.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Let's talk about what it looks like. What is clutter in relationships? How do we bring clutter into our relationships?
Don't go to therapy.
I'm just kidding. It's an excuse.
I'm kidding.
Clutter becomes so this is where I will say my hoarding experience really adds up. Clutter is an excuse for bad behavior. And what I mean by that is hoarding is caused by trauma. Mm-hmm. It's not about stuff. I've written a textbook about this, so I promise you, I get to teach therapists on this. So this is not an opinion. This is a fact. Clutter is it is the vehicle for families to fall apart. It is caused by generational trauma. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens is families actually, they deal with the trauma. They go to therapy for the trauma. You can't cure hoarding without therapy, by the way. You don't treat the hoarding, you treat the trauma. So divorce, death, loss of family. A really new clause for hoarding right now is you've raised your kids properly and they move away and they grow up. And now you've lost your purpose. Mm-hmm. Is that trauma? Sure. I mean, now that we're entering the situation where kids start to move away, I thought that was the thing we've been working for. Can't wait for the kids to move away. We kept saying it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. And then they leave and you're like, this sucks. Yeah. The house is empty. Yeah. And all I wanted was an empty house, right? But what happens in hoarding is it's usually the husband and the wife. And I don't mean to do male and female roles here, but it is what usually happens probably 90% of the time. Female hoards. Female's willing to go through the trauma. She's willing to go through the therapy to make a difference for her family. She does the work. She cleans the house out. House is empty. And now the husband doesn't have anything to blame. And the husband's still an asshole. Mm-hmm. And we warn husbands. We're like, be careful, dude. We're going to clean this house by Friday. And you can't be blaming the clutter because it's not going to be there. And so clutter is an excuse for bad behavior, and it's also an excuse for past behavior. All clutter is across the board is it's a reason to really justify bad behaviors. And I'm getting really deep here, but at the end of the day, for me, from a leadership standpoint, what does clutter do? It holds you back from what you actually want to achieve.
Yeah.
Period.
And you brought up something that I was really thinking about as well, because there's the process of removing. So when we talk about decluttering, we are removing the clutter, right? Whether that's in our thinking, whether that's in our relationships, all those things that are clutter in our relationships can look like, it's really can be boiled down to maybe accidental behavior as well. Mm-hmm. It's those times when we're not treating somebody in the way that gets the best out of them. We're just kind of unloading on them some of our frustrations for the day. It's all those times where we're not being fully transparent or being somebody that's worthy of trust in the relationship. It's all of those little saboteurs that come in. It's the time that we talk bad about our partner to our friend. You know, these are saboteurs that can come in, and all of those things you can do the work to declutter. But you kind of mentioned this, Matt, of like, if you don't replace it with something, you have a void. And a void is just as dangerous, I think, as a void in a relationship is just as dangerous as clutter in a relationship. Mm-hmm. So you have to be intentional about what are we going to replace our thinking with. If I am doing the work to clean up my thoughts, to start telling myself the truth to myself about myself, I've got to replace the lies that I was believing, remove those, but I got to replace it with truth. In my relationships, if I've had again, just unhealthy things, we can go to therapy and work on that relationship. But if we're just removing stuff and not replacing it, we've got to avoid.
So you asked me to, when you send me, topics about this podcast, you're like, what's your leadership tool? For me, it's brutal honesty. And I preach that to all my clients. Because like I'll walk in and, I'm like, how many cats do you have? Oh, 24. And then you're like, oh, okay. And they're like, oh, and I look around and there's, thousands of magazines and there's goat trails and I can barely get in the house. And the lady's like, well, I might be a hoarder. I go, honey, if I'm in your house, you're a hoarder. Like, let's just stop dancing around that.
Yeah.
Let's just get to it because you can't fix it unless you're honest with it. So I am a big proponent in brutal honesty, almost to the point where some people are uncomfortable with it. But if you can jump into that, then you can actually, once you've gotten past that, you can achieve anything. And we actually see it in like a 5-day clean out for us. We call it the turn, where that first day, nothing happens. And we purposely don't really try to clean much out. You'll notice when I clean a house on TV, the dumpster is empty on the first day because the family's not ready they haven't made the turn. They haven't admitted what's wrong. They haven't admitted that they're, all the challenges that they have. One thing Zoe's taught me is kind of like that finish line. Like, what is your what is your goal? Right. And what's your what's
your why?
Your why. Yeah. And you want to explain on that or no?
I mean, your why when you're decluttering or really making any change in your life is what is the goal of this. And this touches back to what you were saying, Linnea, about replacing it with something else. That's the whole purpose. Simplifying your home or living minimalist isn't just to have white walls and empty space, although that can be a great thing, but that's not the whole purpose. The purpose is to replace it with things that are actually going to help you live like the life that you want, the best life with your family and, and to have good relationships.
That's one of the things I really loved about your book, Zoe, because I think, and that's probably why it was so helpful for you, Matt, when you were looking for a resource, because I think your book isn't just about, it's not about just having the white walls and the simple. It's literally full of like practical steps and tips and resources. Like, what do you replace it with? And you start with knowing your why.
Yes.
Like if you don't have a purpose for doing this, or you're just trying to do it because you saw something cute and as you were scrolling on social media and you want your house to look like that, that's not going to sustain you through the really hard parts.
No, all your motivation is going to just extinguish. Once you get into it, and then you're just going to be like, I'm good. But, even just thinking about something as simple as a dining room table, when people have their dining room table or the table that, where they would all eat together is just completely covered with stuff. When you think about it, decluttering that and clearing it off isn't just about being able to walk in the house and say, oh, look at that decluttered table. That looks great. It's actually about being able to eat together and spend time together in that space.
Yeah, I had a really personal experience. I kind of alluded to this in the beginning. About a year ago, it was a year ago this month, actually, a year ago this week, actually, my father-in-law suddenly passed away. So very similar to you, Matt, it was very unexpected. We did not prepare for that. And he was a brilliant man. He was a neurologist, chief of neurology at multiple hospitals. And he had, he really became a hoarder. And he was somewhat more one of your organized hoarders, I would say. But
so hoarders are typically incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
Top 3 professions are teachers, nurses, and social workers.
Oh, wow.
And
teachers, nurses, social workers.
And what do they have in common?
Helpers.
Wow.
They're helpers. They're caregivers.
Wow.
And then secondary on the male side, it's doctors, lawyers, and engineers.
That's
and he was probably all 6 of those.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And so, but I mean, when you were talking about the goat trails, like we went into his home. I mean, it was literally goat trails. I mean, he got to the point where it was sabotaging our relationships in those last years because when we would go to visit him, we weren't invited in the home anymore because there was no place to sit. There was no place to eat. He had a dining room table. He had all of this big, heavy oak furniture and everything. And literally it was so covered with books and papers and there was no place to sit and there was no place to eat. So we would sit outside on the porch, there was no place. I mean, he had over 4,000 books. So he was a brilliant man. He had read them all, but he had bookcases on every single shelf of every single room in his house. And it was just covered with books. And And again, so many more things.
I'm going to bring this back. I have a hoarding story that'll bring us back to leadership. I had a hoarder, brilliant lady, and she had thousands of books in 10 different languages. And she'd have the same book in like 10 different languages. And I asked her one time, I said, walk me through this. And this was early in my career, so I was still trying to understand hoarding. And I said, I'm not judging. I want to understand this. Why do you have 10 books of the same book? It was in 10 copies. And she goes, and she looked at me just disgusted and annoyed. And she was judging me. And I'm in a scenario where I'm like, the rest of the world is judging you. And she was clearly judging me. And I said, why do you have the same book? And she goes, because sometimes poetry sounds better in Russian. I'll have to take her word for it, but I believed her. What it did make me do is understand that hoarders are different. They're not worse or they're better.
Sure.
They're just straight up different. I later found out she was a translator at the UN in the 70s.
Wow.
So she would hand translate grammar on the fly to all these ambassadors. Like, she was brilliant. And it, as much as I was annoyed with how messy her house was, she was equally as annoyed how unintelligent I was.
Yeah. It sounds like that brought her joy then.
Joy at a high level, dude, like at an insane
Get those
level.
dopamine hits.
Yeah.
And she and I, so that is what hoarding is, dopamine hits, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're sad, you're really, really down. And so what do you have to do to feel good? You go buy stuff, or you go consume books, or whatever you do. Makes you feel good. And then, especially on the buying side, the next day you wake up and all these boxes come in from Amazon and you feel bad again. So what do you have to do to feel good? You got to buy more stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a constant up and down. The reason I'm saying this and talking about leadership is like, hoarding was a really extreme place for me to work for 15, 20 years. Because I mean, before I was on TV, I just did hoarding houses by myself for $15 an hour, for 5 years. Right? The irony is, it helped me to be a very good employer because I understand that people have their strengths and weaknesses. But when we got home, for Zoe and I didn't know I was going to have 7 kids.
Yeah.
And the joke, the guy from Hoarders has 7 kids. I mean, we get it, but like, we use those skill sets every day. And I don't mean to take over the podcast, but I'm curious, like, what skill set do you use, Zoe? I know what I mean, for me, it's listening. I've had to become a much better listener because obviously I'm a talker. You're laughing at me. For me, it's listening.
Wait, did you say you're a listener?
Yeah, I'm gonna shut up in a second. What are your what skill sets from minimalism? What skill sets from minimalism do you use kind of to lead? Because you lead our home. I mean, that's a fact. You're the leader of our home. I'm number 2, and that's okay. Sometimes I'm number 9.
No, babe. No,
I mean that in a good way. I proudly say that. I love that. I mean, she is the leader of our home, and so you're the one they go to first.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious,
Well,
how do you think minimalism has helped with that?
Well, just first I want to say for all the parents out there, like, your kids go to whichever parent they think they're going to get what they want from.
There, yes.
You are the more fun one, and I'm the more feeler.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Practical. So if they want a joke, they're going to go to you.
Yeah. They want jokes less these days. They want freedom.
They do
so
want
they
jokes
go to you.
less these days. Yeah. So no, I mean, I think it's just about really hearing what they're saying. And, if the kids are coming to us, it's about listening to what they're actually saying. And sometimes they might not even understand what they're coming to you with. So it's just trying to help them navigate through the challenge of what it is.
I think, back to your point, Linnea, like for us, not having all that stuff in the house, this is where no clutter helps. We're not fighting this fight in our brain over clutter, over did I fail here? What did I do wrong here? Why did we spend so much money on this? Because we've when we really talk about decluttering, it's in our brain. So because like nighttime in our house, 5 of 7 kids have a challenge and they need to talk to us. Mm-hmm. People are like, what shows do you watch? Dude, I haven't watched anything since MASH, right? I mean, like, because we're busy. That's an old show, by the way, if you're listening. I know you know what it is. It's a great show.
It is pretty.
Yeah.
But that's pretty old. That
the joke
was a long
is
time
it's
ago,
an old,
Matt.
long time ago. That's the joke.
I think for both of you, because I do see that and one thing I really admire knowing both of you and knowing both of you as parents, I think you both actually are very intentional with your children and listening to your children. I know, Matt, you do these walks with your kids, feelings walks, listening walks, which is a great tip, especially for dads out there, by the way.
Yeah.
And for moms, I think, Zoe, you do such a good job at really drawing out what your children are really trying to say. You do an excellent job. That's called active listening. And I think you do such a good job at that. So, but having an environment that is conducive to that is what helps, to facilitate it. It makes it a reality, right? So that your energy is not spent constantly arguing with your kids about putting their stuff away, or you didn't clean your room, or this and that. I'm sure there's still some of that.
Oh yeah, there's still some, socks and shoes left out and whatnot. But
Spoons.
We were talking about the disappearing spoons over here.
Don't know where they are.
Yeah, I know, right? I think they go in the trash.
I can tell you which bedroom they're in. I guarantee you they're in there. Yeah.
So what I love, I think, just kind of landing the plane with this is thinking about both of you. We talked about it in the very beginning, that you talked about how you really are in the same space. You are called to the same work. You're just coming at it from a different perspective. And I think this is why it's relatable to anybody who is listening, because you could be like me and maybe have a family member that your relationships, the environment, it was harmed because of somebody that a wonderful person, a loving person, a person who we miss dearly, but really didn't have a handle on this. And hoarding really harmed those relationships, right?
Yeah.
And yet it's also relatable for anybody who is just living day to day, like I think most of us do, especially as Americans. We live in these houses, and what do we do when we get more stuff? We get a bigger house. What do we do when we have more? We get a bigger garage. And so we just start, the stuff is what we spend our lives managing versus the relationships, versus the purpose piece.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, both of you talk about it in your book. I think, Matt, one thing you were talking about in Keep the Memories Loose, the stuff is really being able to withstand temporary discomfort in order to get to a place where you know that better is possible and better will be real, because you've done that. You withstood that disruption and that discomfort. And Zoe, again, you're know your purpose, know your why.
Yeah.
Start with something simple, something small. So I guess for you guys, what would be some final things that if people are listening to this and they're just like, oh my gosh, I want my life to be lived with purpose and intention. I want to flourish. What would you offer to people?
So Zoe told me this. I stole it from her.
Oh no, I'm
stole it from her
scared.
book. No, it's minimal. So I say downsizing is not about getting rid of everything. Downsizing is about getting rid of the stuff that doesn't matter, so you have space for the stuff that does. I'll say that again. Downsizing is not about getting rid of everything. It's about getting rid of the stuff that doesn't matter, so you make space for the stuff that does. If that's not leadership, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Right? And you can do that at a very micro level or a very large level. Something in our relationship, I'll brag on Zoe for a minute. We both came from former relationships. So the things that worked, things that didn't. She doesn't look at Zoe is a lion. All right. I mean, if she wants something, it's going to happen. And that's one thing I was attracted to.
I'm a quiet
lion.
A quiet lion.
I forget what we called it.
Yeah.
But when we started dating, with 7 kids, you go from so few kids. We were both single parents. And then all of a sudden we're living in a house with 7 kids, and we're all getting to know each other. And she still fought for date night every Friday night. And it was to the point where I thought it was annoying, to be honest. And I was like, we got to make this family. And she's like, no. And she, fought it, made me.
Yep.
And was firm on it. It was non-negotiable. And I will say that is what has really carried us through our relationship, because we always have Friday night together.
Sometimes you even share that with Eric and I.
Sometimes
we're so
we do.
grateful.
Sometimes we do.
That. Yes.
But we're always together with no kids on Friday night.
Yeah.
And that relentlessness is, I think, your biggest strength of leadership, is fighting for that one thing that you know is right.
Thank you, babe.
You're welcome.
Oh. Oh, yeah, I do love that.
Probably going to get
Zoe,
laid tonight.
No,
You're gonna-
I don't know what to
You're going to
say.
leave us with some sage wisdom because you are, that is one thing that I so admire about you. And I think this has been this is not just a job for you. This is part of your purpose. So I think if you just remind us once again about your purpose, because I think that's what anchors you and that's what gives so much credibility and authenticity to what you do. It's what makes people relate to and benefit from what you have to offer.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about intentionality, like being intentional. And that is probably something that I have been actively practicing for years, and that makes me able to really look at a situation, a house or a relationship, and say, like, what is actually important here? And what do I want to say to myself about this situation 10 years from now? If I'm looking back and I'm saying, well, I wish I did this or I wish I did that, that's what I need to do right now. So obviously we're all human and nobody's perfect, but I think thinking about those things, being prudent, can really help you live, the life that you want right now.
Yeah, I think so too. Being intentional, not accidental.
Yeah.
Thinking of all of these. We have a tool called the 5 Circles of Influence, and it starts with us, right? So we talked about this in the very beginning, how it starts with our mindset. And then it includes our primary relationships, our work relationships, and ultimately our community is impacted by our ability to either be intentional in those relationships, steward them well, or being accidental, in which case that has a lot of consequences. But it does take determination and relentlessness to do it, but it can be done, and it can be done incrementally, and it can lead to purpose and joy. And I think that's one thing I just so respect in both of you. And I want everybody to listen to this episode, because I have already taken some really great nuggets away from this, that I want to apply that level of intentionality to my life and to my relationship with my husband and with my children. And I think my children are now grown, but I think of the years and the months of things that were wasted on just the stuff that wasn't important, right? And I want to be able to live with that kind of intentionality, and I think others will too. So feel free to add anything else, but I really thank you so much.
I have one other thing to say. Sorry, I would.
Yeah.
One more word,
It
Matt
just dawned
Paxton.
on me. No, it dawned on me when I was sitting here. Marriages, you have to choose your battles. In relationships, you have to choose your battles. And stuff gives you more battles to fight.
Yeah.
It's true.
And with no gain.
None.
I mean, what is right? Back to the why and the purpose. Why are we fighting this battle? Like, are we fighting this battle so that we can keep buying stuff and figure out later that we have 7 pairs of scissors in 2 different rooms that we couldn't find?
How much sushi do you get to eat each week? There's a point to this question. How many times do you go to sushi a week?
I am going to plead the 5th.
At least more than one, right?
I can't say.
Use
No,
some
this is
sushi
important.
right now.
I
Hey,
love
Zoe, do you want to go
sushi.
out
No,
after
this
this
is
and get
important.
some sushi?
This
Yes.
is the point.
Lynette, yeah,
Go with me.
I love sushi. I get to eat sushi, whenever almost I want,
And why do we get to eat sushi whenever we want?
because we don't buy a lot of other stuff.
Exactly. Guys, if you want to eat sushi more than once a month, stop buying a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again, both Matt and Zoe, for being here. I knew we would share laughs. I knew we would share wisdom, learn from one another. And that's just the nature of our relationship. It's the nature of your relationship. And I think it's why our world is a better place, because both of you are in it. So thank you again for being on the Human Together podcast. And I can't wait to hear from folks' feedback if you listened in and you felt that you learned something. And we're going to give you in our show ways that you can connect with Zoe. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, she has workshops, she has digital courses, she's a coach. She has just practical tips and ways that you can connect with Matt, like through his company, Clutter Cleaners. Maybe you, like me, have a family member who has struggled with some trauma and has struggled with hoarding, and it is damaging their relationships. And, Clutter Cleaners can help with that. And you can follow along on these journeys. Watch Filthy Fortunes. I'm telling you, it's a great show to watch. It's really fun, really entertaining. And of course, I think there are just the human elements of it too. You really do fall in love with these people because they are just sincere, honest people, and this is their lives. And we want to see people flourish. We want to see people be healthy. We want to see people be human together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Human Together. I hope today's conversation has inspired you to reflect on how we can better understand ourselves and others in every aspect of life. Remember, when we truly see and embrace our own behaviors and tendencies, we open the door to deeper connection, better communication, and stronger leadership, not just at work, but in our communities and relationships. At Long Table, we're here to help you navigate those people problems that often hold us back, offering practical tools to change both individual and collective behaviors. Because when we thrive together, we create stronger and more resilient communities. Let's keep striving to be human together. Until next time, I'm Linnea Miller. Take care and keep growing.